Have you ever wondered how the book of Revelation is organized? Well, today I am going to give you an outline of the book of Revelation, which actually came from Jesus Christ himself. So stay tuned. Hi, welcome back to Bible Simplified. Today we're going to finish, finally, the first chapter of Revelation, and we're going to look at verse 19, where we are given an outline of the entire book of Revelation, which should help us understand how it's actually organized. Verse 19 says, "Write the things which you have seen, and the things which are, and the things which will take place after this." So there you go, an outline of the entire book. So we see that the book is broken into three parts. The first part is, as John was instructed, write the things that you have seen. And the second is the things that are. And the third, the things which would take place after this. So I'm going to talk about each one of those parts. So writing down the things that you have seen, the first part. So the things which you have seen is everything that we just read in chapter 1. When John looked and he saw this vision of Jesus and all his glory and his power and his authority, and Jesus was standing among all of the lampstands, which represent the churches, the 7 churches that John was to send the book to, and he had the 7 stars in his hand, and the 7 stars represented the angels or the leaders of each one of those churches. Now I believe that the angels represent the leaders of the churches because John was actually writing down this book and he was told to send it to the people of the church. So John would send the book to the leaders of each one of the churches, and then those leaders would then have the responsibility of giving it out to the parishioners. Now, there were obviously many churches that existed during that day. So why did Jesus pick those specific 7 churches to give the letter to? Well, we're going to see in the upcoming videos that there are certain attributes, there are certain things about those churches, and not only the churches that existed during that day. If you look at the order that the books were written, it actually gives you a description of church history. If you look from when the church started at the day of Pentecost up until present time. Well, if these books are a description of the entire church age, what is the church age? Well, the church age began at the day of Pentecost. The day of Pentecost is actually around 50 days after the Resurrection Sunday. After Jesus' resurrection, and he did come back and he visited a lot of his disciples, people who believed in him, and they saw him after his death and resurrection. And one thing that he told them, he said that I want you to remain in Jerusalem, and you can read about this in Acts chapter 1. He instructed them to remain in Jerusalem until the promise of the Father came to them. Now, what was the promise of the Father? The promise of the Father was to give them a comforter in the Holy Spirit. And it was after they were empowered by the Holy Spirit at that time that they were then to go out and make disciples of all men. So as I said, we are going to go through each one of the churches and find out what Jesus thought of each one of the churches and what they were like, and it's going to give us a glimpse into what he thinks about us and the state of the church today. And we're going to go through that in later videos. But that is the second part of the things that are the church age. And the third part is the things that will take place after this. So the things that will take place after this, meaning after the second part, which is the church age, would be the tribulation period. When the church age is over, when then all believers who belong to the church are then going to go up and be with the Lord, there's going to be a period called the tribulation period. And this period lasts for 7 years. But the after this part is actually longer than 7 years, because after the tribulation period is going to be the second coming of Jesus Christ, where he is going to return back to the earth, and everyone from the church age is going to return with him. And that's going to be at the Battle of Armageddon, and he's going to stop the judgment, everything that's happening, and he's going to establish his millennial rule on the earth. And he is going to take Satan, he is going to bound him up for 1,000 years. He's going to take the Antichrist and the false prophet, and they're going to go alive straight into the lake of fire. And then we're going to have 1,000 years of peace on earth, where Christ is actually the ruler and he is going to reign for 1,000 years, and anyone who is part of the bride of Christ or the church is going to reign with him. After that 1,000-year period, God is going to lose Satan. Satan is going to go. He's going to deceive the world again, because when Christ starts his millennial rule, there are going to be people who actually survive the tribulation period, who are going to come to faith in Jesus Christ during that time period, who actually survive, who are not martyred, and they're going to repopulate the earth. So there are going to be lots of people, but it's going to be very strict during that time. That's why we're going to have peace on earth, because Jesus is going to be the one, the Prince of Peace, to rule and reign on the earth. So you are not going to have corrupt leaders like we do now, who want nothing to do with God, but are only concerned about their own power and their own agendas. It's going to be Christ on the throne. So at the end of those 1,000 years, when Satan is let loose again, he's going to go and he's going to deceive the nations, because those people are going to have kids and they're going to repopulate the earth. And then a lot of them did not go through the whole tribulation time period. And probably during that time, maybe they won't even believe that it even ever happened, because Satan is going to deceive them, and he's going to use his old tricks again that he's used to deceive. So after Satan comes and he deceives the nations again, you're going to have people who are going to try to come up against God again, and God is going to put a stop and end to those, and they will be punished for that. Then it's going to be what's called the Great White Throne Judgment, where every non-believer throughout the ages that ever existed is going to have to stand trial. And this is not trial whether you're innocent or guilty. This is more like a sentencing trial. So they will know what degree of punishment that they're going to have. And after that, it's going to be a new heaven and new earth, and then we're going to go into eternity. Now, in chapters 4 through 22, I just kind of gave like a short overview of what's going to happen during that time period. Those chapters are kind of sort of in order, but not exactly. And what I mean by that is there are certain chapters which are called parenthetical chapters. So if you ever looked at a sentence, if you ever read a sentence and inside of the sentence you might have like a little parentheses and something written inside, which kind of gives like a little insight as to what they're saying in the sentence. Well, that's what certain chapters are. It kind of stops the action. It kind of gives like a parentheses, and it kind of tells you some things that are going on, or some things that you should know, to give you kind of further clarification as to what's going on. So that's it. That is an outline of the book of Revelation. And in my next video, I'm going to start a series on what does God really think about the churches. And we're going to look at the first church that John sent the book of Revelation to. So thanks for watching. See you next time. Hope you'll join me in my next video. Please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you can be notified of my next video. So thanks for watching. Bye bye.